Hello, my people. Thank you so much for joining me again in this live section. Nnamdi Kanu has no case to answer as Ipob tells Nigerian government. They went as far as saying that terrorism charges against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is his violation of rights. That was what Ipob was saying, and as well as he was also talking about that Ipob that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has no case to answer. That's what Ipob told the Nigerian government. Now, they say that the group said the continuous prosecution of Kanu on box charge bordering on treasonable felony and terrorism is a gross violation of his fundamental rights. The indigenous people of Biafra has again reached out to the international community and the Nigerian government, insisting that its leader Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is a prisoner of conscience and has no case to answer to them. They went as far as telling us that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has no case to answer to the Nigerian government. Therefore, they should release him. That the detention of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, with these terrorism charges given to him is a violation of his rights. So that is what they said. So it said that the group said that the continued prosecution of Kanu on books charges bordering on treasonable felony and terrorism is a gross violation of his fundamental rights. IPOB stated this in a statement signed by its media and publicity secretary, that is Emma Powerful, on Saturday in Abuja. He said IPOB said it was not begging for mercy but demanded for justice. IPOB were saying that the indigenous people of Biafra were saying that they are not begging for mercy for Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. They are only demanding for justice because they know that what should happen to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is justice must be done. They're not good. They should not. They went as far as saying that they should not release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu on mercy. They should do what they're supposed to do. That justice must be done when they want to release him, because they all know that all those charges given to him are false. So they said that the statement read in parts, we can call on Nigerians, the international community, and all the lovers of justice to heed this clarion call. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has no case to answer. The continued prosecution of our leader is not only a gross violation of his fundamental rights, but also an indictment of Nigeria's judiciary, which has descended into a cesspool of judiciary terrorism and criminal derealization of duty. For too long, Nigerians have been misled by a false narrative propagated by the Nigerian state and its complicit media, claiming that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu faced charges of terrorism or terrorism. Let us just keep the record straight. The treasonable felony charges against our leader was struck out years ago when the former Attorney General, that is Abubakar Malim, realized the case was unwinnable. No treason was committed. The Nigerian state, in its depreciation to silence the Biafran struggle, resorted to fabricating terrorism charges despite the Federal High Court's clear ruling that IPOB is a lawful organization. This ruling was breezily overturned through forum shopping by Malimi, who secured a prosecution order from Justice Kafarity Court without granting IPOB the fair hearing guaranteed under Section 36 of Nigerian's constitution. Now, there have been so many times that the Federal High Court's clear ruling that IPOB is a lawful organization, so many times, and they also granted Mazi Nnamdi Kanu bail, which the court has refused to grant him bail. Now, they said this act alone expressed the Nigerian judiciary as a tool of oppression rather than a bastion of justice. The statement described the stay of execution to overturn a valid judgment reached in a criminal trial that discharged and acquitted Kanu as abuse of judicial process. IPOB insisted that the Nigerian government is desperate to silence its struggle, resorted to fabrication of the terrorism charges despite the Federal High Court's clear ruling that the organization is a lawful organization. They have tried every possible best to silence Biafra, despite the fact that the Federal High Court said that Biafra is a lawful organization. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is a prisoner of conscience, detained for his unwavering commitment to the self-determination of the Biafran people. The Nigerian state has no case against him. Should he even ever take the stand to defend himself, the world will witness the unraveling of Nigerians' cascade of justice. Ipob is not begging for mercy. They demand justice. Ipob is not begging for mercy. They're not begging for mercy for that they will release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. They're demanding justice because they know the man is innocent. And we pray that God Almighty, the ultimate witness, to stand with us in this Biafra case, because they already know that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is saying nothing but the truth. So under the leadership of our leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, wishes to address the persistent misinformation and judicial travesty surrounding his unlawful detention and prosecution. Most egregious is the unprecedented abuse of judicial process by Justice Tassamani and his co-plaintiffs at the Court of Appeal. In a move, they defied the principles of law and justice. They employed a civil procedure, stay out of execution, to overturn a valid judgment reached in a criminal trial, a ruling that had discharged and acquitted Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. We owe Nigerians and the global community to study this law and recognize the hypocrisy of those who claim to uphold it while violating its very tenets. The Nigerian state's obsession with persecuting Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has exposed its judiciary as a willing accomplice in a neo-colonial agenda to suppress the legitimate aspiration of the Biafran people. The prosecution is not just not just an attack on one man, but an assault on justice, truth, and the rule of law. Nigeria risks destroying whatever is left of its global reputation and reducing its judiciary to a laughingstock. So those encouraging the Tinubu regime to persist in this dangerous path do not wish Nigeria well. Yes, they underestimate the unyielding resolve and the financial devotion of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu to the cause of Biafra. His courage, even in chains, as evidence in videos of his interrogations by the DSS, stands as a testimony to his unbreakable spirit and the righteousness of our cause. I'm telling you guys the truth. The fact that the courage Mazi Nnamdi Kanu have, despite in chains, despite the fact that he's in the DSS detention, as evidence in even in his videos when they're interrogating him, it shows, it's just a testimony that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's spirit is unbreakable and he's righteous in everything he's saying. So Ipob have come out to tell us that terrorism charges against Nnamdi Kanu is a violation of rights, and Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has nothing to answer to the federal government. So them keeping him in detention, they're just keeping him there for no reason, maybe to their own personal interest. They know why he's still in detention. I want you guys to actually listen to what many people have to say, same as what these interviewers have to say about Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's continuous detention, and the way many Nigerians, as well as Ipob, is saying that his continuous detention is just a violation of rights. So guys, take a look at this, and I'll be right back.
You see, if he says it's a difficult...
Back to the People's Voice, we are discussing the latest developments surrounding the indigenous people of Biafra, Ipob, and their leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Comrade Ima Powerful, who is Ipob's publicity secretary, has reiterated that Kanu has no case to answer despite the ongoing prosecution. Powerful argued that the continued prosecution of Kanu on charges of treasonable felony and terrorism is a gross violation of his fundamental rights. He emphasized that the federal government, through the Federal High Court, had previously ruled the Ipob is a lawful organization and that the fabrication of terrorism charges is a desperate attempt to silence the Biafran struggle. Even though there's been a lot of evidence that have been tendered in the case recently, he still maintained his claims. The Ipob spokesperson highlighted that the abuse of the judicial process in Kanu's case, particularly in the use of civil procedure to overturn a valid judgment in a criminal trial. He said this has exposed Nigeria's judiciary as a tool of oppression rather than a bastion of justice. Speaking about justice, he said that they are not demanding for mercy. Powerful stress that Ipob is not begging for mercy but demanding justice for Kanu and the Biafran people. He emphasized that Kanu's detention is an attack on justice, truth, and the rule of law, and that the Nigerian state's actions risk destroying its global reputation. Despite the challenges, Powerful expressed confidence in Kanu's unwavering resolve and devotion to the Biafran cause. He warned that those encouraging the Tinubu regime to persist in this path do not wish Nigeria well and underestimate the unyielding spirit of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Well, interesting times are here. Joining me now to discuss Ipob's recent statements and the implications for Nigerian politics and the judiciary is VOP in-house senior analyst, Mr. Dele Fanimo. Good afternoon, Mr. Dele.
Good evening. How are you today?
All right, I hope you enjoyed the holidays, though, even though no holiday in the media space.
Of course.
But you had some free meat.
I tried.
I think the key word is the free meat there. But let's talk about the Ipob's claim on Gowon and the Nigerian state. As a student of history, how do you respond to the assertion that General Yakub Gowon's comments on the Biafra war are a provocative, insensitive, and shameless attempt to whitewash the atrocities of the Biafran genocide?
Yeah, my takeoff point is that that war was needless, ab initio. And I'll tell you why it's needless. You see, something precipitated agitation. The 1966 coup was the seed of agitation, where the northern elements, particularly in the political space, accused the southeasterners that were at the top echelon of the military of masterminding that coup. But one thing is clear, in the military, no one particular section of the country will plan a coup without the input of other sections. It hardly succeeds.
Okay.
That's why the coup of Gideon Oka, the coup of this man that killed Murtala Mohammed, Dimka, you would notice that those two coups were primarily the elements in those coups were primarily from the present-day North Central. Benue, Plateau, not the core north, like the Northwest and Northeast. So, and coups are supposed to be swift. The moment you drag to a point that those who shouldn't know get to know about it, their coup has failed. And the consequence of a failed coup is clear. It's death. So, now, when those coup and counter-coup came, the northern elements in the military started this idea of subjugating the southern elements, having taken power. Gowon was a lieutenant colonel when he was called to be the head of state, while there were brigadier generals. Then they were calling them brigadiers in the military. But they had to take a northerner in person of General Yakubu Gowon as the head of state. Obviously, the likes of Ojukwu, the likes of Ademulegun, Banjo, those people were in the military, and they felt that if this thing should continue, they will not have a place in a supposedly united entity called Nigeria. And so, agitation started, and Gowon led the federal side, Ojukwu led his own side, and other elements from other sections of the country were there in Aburi. Aburi in Ghana was the venue where they had meetings. And there were terms of agreement at that meeting,
Okay.
which should have given autonomy to the Biafra Republic. And of course, there was a push for the southwestern states to also have their own autonomy. And those terms were agreed on. But as soon as Gowon got back to Nigeria, certain elements, both within the military and the civil populace, felt no, that there was no way they were going to agree to a section of the country staying away from the Union. And the elements that were there, started by Ojukwu,
Yeah.
was already on the side of, yes, we are there. And suddenly somebody says, no, it won't work. They're not going to allow it. And trust me, Ojukwu was still a very young man at that time. And he felt, look, this is pure betrayal of trust. We trusted ourselves, and we didn't want any undue interference. That was why we took this thing to Ghana.
Outside the country.
And as a matter of fact, I've been to Aburi 2 times. You can't drive an ordinary car to Aburi because it's on top of the hill. So your car cannot just roll back. Once your car rolls back, it's dead.
Wow.
So these issues fundamentally was betrayal of trust. That we all agreed. We are all military men. As at the time Gowon became head of state, he was not senior in rank to Ojukwu.
That's part of the thoughts of being betrayed.
Now,
don't you think that the position of Yakubu Gowon now might be able to right some of the wrongs that was done at the time?
No, you see, what we are saying is, when there was a surrender in 1970, everybody, in fact, that was when they said, no victor, no vanquished. The casualty was more on the Biafra side than the federal troops in Nigeria. But the point is, at some point, there is no war that continues for centuries. There must be a point where there will be discussion on round table. For instance, look at what is going on in Russia and in Ukraine. There is no way they will not come to the round table anytime soon for them to resolve this matter. So when that war ended and there was resolution, that was why they came with 3 R's. Reconciliation, reintegration, and forgotten the third one now. I'll remember in the course of this show.
Now, I want you to respond to their assertion on
now,
General Joe Gowon's comment.
You see, if he says it's a difficult war that they had to prosecute, for me, it's neither here nor there. We have seen countries break in history, even in recent times. Sudan and South Sudan broke up and they're still there. Eritrea broke up from Ethiopia and they're still there. In Great Britain, Ireland broke up and they're still there. Semi-autonomy is given to Scotland and Wales. They're still there. So, if these people were resolute and they feel they can stand on their own, we would have just resolved it amicably and let Biafra stand. Perhaps today we will not be talking about all these problems we have in Nigeria today, because at the end of the day, everybody will grow at its own pace. And I can tell you for free that if that thing had happened at that time, perhaps the Southern Protectorate would have come together, using leverage on the weaknesses and strengths, using the SWOT analysis to come as a confederacy with a very weak center, and all the regions would have developed at its own pace. Maybe by now, the southeastern part of this country would have emerged as Singapore.
Okay, let's move away from that story because of time. Let's talk about the stance of the Ipob, because they are not going to stop talking anytime soon. Do you think the Nigerian government has been complicit in Ipob's claim of judicial bias and oppression, particularly in the case of Nnamdi Kanu's detention and prosecution?
You see, for me, Nnamdi Kanu's case is to some extent sub judice now, because it's in the open court and the trial has been ongoing. And the way we are trained in journalism is anything that is in the open court, you are not supposed to comment directly on it. But indirectly, we are looking at political issues. The truth about it is, I would suggest, it's a speedy trial now. I would suggest that we wait until the outcome and the resolution of this matter through the law, so that we can put... I like that statement made by the spokesperson. Powerful. That they are not seeking mercy, they are seeking justice. And that's the route this case is taking. Whatever judgment that is passed becomes a permanent resolution.
But the same Powerful has come to say that Nnamdi Kanu does not have a case to answer. He said that there's no case to answer as far as they are concerned. And in your words, yes, you agree with what he has said, that they are not seeking mercy. It's about justice, which should be the way to go. But how about the implication of this continued detention on Nigeria's national unity and stability?
As a matter of fact, I can tell you that the way the accelerated trial is going on, in a matter of maybe 1 month or 2 months, they should have concluded this case and passed judgment.
Ideally. But do you see that happening?
I'm seeing it, because they go to court almost every day now.
With a lot of evidences and counter evidences, with all of that coming.
In fact, it's like any time from now, if they resume, maybe tomorrow, in the next 1 week, the prosecution will close its case. And once it closes its case, the defense will come up, and in no time, the evidence against Kanu had been put forward. It is for the defense counsels to do what is right by cross-examining those people, and which they have started. So they will also bring up their own defense. And in no time, I am seeing this case being closed by next month.
Okay, let's talk about the government's response and international community. Emma Powerful has made a strong allegation saying that for the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whoever it is that is encouraging the president to shy away from this case or not, have whatever authority he can to put on the case to ensure there's hastening prosecution, trial and judgment at the end of the day. Those are allegations according to some analysts. But what step do you think that the Nigerian government could take to address Ipob's demands and concerns, particularly regarding Nnamdi Kanu's release and the treatment of the Igbo people? Because it's sort of dicey at a time like this, because there are a larger population who will still come out to tell you that they are not part of the people seeking for a Biafra nation. So what can the government do?
You see, initially, my position on this issue is for us to find political solution to it. The critical stakeholders in the southeast part of the country coming to see how they can talk government into ensuring that this thing is settled amicably and Kanu can be released so that he can reunite with his family and continue with his life. But over time, it took a lot of efforts from few genuine Southeasterners who are not playing politics with the detention of Kanu. Perhaps if the major stakeholders in the Southeast had been united in the real sense of it to ensure that they come to whoever has the power to use political solution to resolve this matter, maybe Kanu would have even probably returned to Britain, where he's a citizen. But we have seen it, and governors in the Southeast have even said it on different occasions, that politicians are the reasons why Kanu is still in detention.
But if you say that people are playing politics with it, does that not further back the position of those that say that the call for a Biafran nation is not a general call from the Igbo descendants?
Now, you see, if Satan, as depicted in the Bible, comes to Nigeria today and proclaims himself Satan, he will have fellowship. I hope you know that. So the same way, not everybody in Biafra or who is of Biafra extraction
Yeah?
will believe in this cause. Just like when OPC started their wahala, Southwesterners didn't believe in this cause. As a matter of fact, as I sit here, when they went to say they wanted to overthrow government, when they went to Agodi about 2 years ago on a Saturday, when the house was not sitting, when the governor was not sitting, I looked at them as crazy, mad people. And so I was on television in another program, and I said those guys should not be let off the hook, that they should be arrested and probably charged for treason, because it doesn't really make any sense. Violence is not the only way you can get what you want. There's a way you pile pressure in such a way that people will know that, look, enough is enough. We need to listen to these people. So, for me, you are not going to have 100% Igbo extraction believing in that cause. But I can tell you, if they succeed tomorrow, you'll be shocked that those who didn't believe in it will be the one to say, yes, on Biafra we stand.
Wow.
So, for me, two things. Nnamdi Kanu, his life should not be placed on the altar of politics, selfish interest, enlightened selfish interest. They should know that blood runs in the veins of this young man, and that his wife is suffering, his children are suffering, they have emotional imbalance. That may live, the trauma may live with them for a long while.
Which will continue to threaten the unity of the nation.
And it will also continue to threaten, because these people, they know Nnamdi Kanu is no longer Nnamdi Kanu. Nnamdi Kanu is the icon, symbol of the Biafra nation. And so anything done to him affects the psychology of
every person that identifies with that.
You understand? So the earlier this case is dispensed with, the better for Nigeria to have peace. But that does not mean that the release of Kanu will automatically stop agitation. Because
so guys, you guys were able to hear what those people were saying, especially this analyst, what he was talking about in Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's case. Now, for me, I feel that the Nigerian government should not just make Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's case a political case. Yes, he should not do that, because if he make it a political case, it's going to worsen the crisis in Nigeria. Because I don't know why they're still keeping him in detention. I don't know if they're keeping him for their own selfish interest, or what they're possibly going to gain by keeping him in continuous detention. And they should not also forget that this man has a family, he has a wife, he has a children, and they're emotionally down on his continuous detention. They are, because imagine a man who hasn't seen his family for years, let me say for like 6 years. It's touching that you're not able to see your family or spend time with them. Even when the presiding judge Omotosho, in the last trial within trial case, he was like they should bring all their witnesses. He was telling the federal government to bring all their witnesses immediately before he closed the case and said the case has ended, because this man needs to spend time with his family. That was what the presiding judge Omotosho said, that he needs to spend time with his family. It's not when they will close the court, the man is still also in continuous detention, or whenever the courts will go on break, he's still on detention, which is so bad. And now if you take a look at what is really going on, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, it's just as if they have now put Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's case to a political thing, because many people are now arguing, as well as the Ipob, saying that the terrorism charges against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is now a violation of his rights, and also he has no case to answer to the federal government. And the question we should be asking is that, like I keep telling myself every time, that I know that this month that this case is going to come to an end, which is Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's court case, is going to come to an end. And the painful part of it is the way they keep adjourning his case, even after they have seen full evidence in court. Like the Nigerian government have seen full evidence. The DSS witnesses are bringing their own evidence, and Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is also bringing his own evidence. So they have actually seen enough evidence to say, okay, this man is not a terrorist, this man did not do that, but they have refused to release him even after all the evidences that they have seen. That's why I told you that many people have started suspecting, and they are also praying that let it not be that this thing is a political case, because the way they are keeping him now in continuous detention is not as if he's a political case. Just like the way Ipob is saying that this man is a prisoner of conscience. Now they have not only limited his right to movement, they have limited his right to see his family members, and and so on. And if you know, and even his lawyers too. And many people have been saying that anybody who is seen, that especially the indigenous people of Biafra, they have been saying that anybody who is seen supporting Tinubu or removing Tinubu's mind from Biafra, or moving Tinubu's mind from what he's supposed to be, then you know that that person is an enemy of Biafra. So many people have been saying that Tinubu by now should have released this man. So tell us, why he's still keeping him in continuous detention? What are people feeding him about Mazi Nnamdi Kanu? Many people are still talking about it, reacting to what is going on, about what the indigenous people of Biafra say, that the fact that they're keeping in continuous detention and the terrorist charges that they gave against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is nothing but a violation of human rights. So that actually many people have come out to talk about how they're going to release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. They can release him conditionally or unconditionally. Yes, that is what Kenneth Okonkwo said. People even went as far as saying that they can also settle out of court, or they can actually use a peaceful dialogue to settle. Talk with the agitator, settle. Even Peter Obi went as far as saying it too, that that this kind of thing is that they need to talk with the agitators, the freedom agitators, call them, ask them what do they want, do a peaceful dialogue with them. You find out that peace will reign. As well as what the Northerners were also saying, some APC members, they were saying that Tinubu can actually settle this case with Mazi Nnamdi Kanu out of court, thereby asking them to come so that they can talk peacefully. Let there be peaceful dialogue, or let an elderly man actually settle the case between them. So there are many ways, to settle this kind of case, because if you notice, this case has actually lingered. So there are many other options to do so, just like what Kenneth Okonkwo said. So guys, take a look at what Kenneth Okonkwo said, and I'll be right back.
Nnamdi Kanu has not done anything that other people from other zones have not done. We know about Sunday Igboho, of the Yoruba nation agitator. We know of the Boko Haram people that say they want a different country where Western education is an abomination. These people have been released. Not just that they have been released. In the case of Boko Haram, they've been re-assimilated to the society, given plum jobs, even in our military. They've been given money and been resuscitated, reconciled, and rehabilitated. Why is Nnamdi Kanu's case different? There is an ethnic and some unnecessary bias that is keeping that man in jail. The government should be wise enough to release this man. You can use the Julian Assange option. If you don't want to say you are losing face, you can release him conditionally. You can release him unconditionally. As a lawyer, I've watched the legal issues very clearly. And I saw that even in the courts, from the High Court to the Supreme Court, there are discordant tones amongst them. Even in the issue of bail, some of the tier of the courts are granted him bail. Even in the issue of the charges, some tier of the court had quashed all the charges. So you can see that the government has a lot of places it can stand to release the young man and bring peace to the southeast. He is now more like a political prisoner. I tell you something, the longer Nnamdi Kanu is in prison, the taller he becomes, and the shorter the government becomes. they should take the intelligent way out of this and release him like they did to other people. Rehabilitate him and reconcile him as they are reconciling.
Because agitation and what they believe, the Igbos believe, is that they have not had a fair share of what rightly belongs to them in Nigeria over the years, particularly after the Civil War. So efforts should be made to consciously work towards ensuring that those things that they consider as their rights that has not been given to them should be given to them.
So when you say that there should be conscious effort to give things that they say belongs to them, are you saying that other region or other part of the country should be placed on automatic hold, whether qualified or not, because you are trying to pacify a particular part of the country?
Now, let me tell you, there is no part of this country that does not have qualified people. No part of this country. Every part of this country, if you want to locate it on the within the presence of ethnicity, there is no country, nobody in this. I mean, no particular section of this country that cannot produce a president, a governor, whatever. Now, the Southwest, after June 12, made conscious effort. Lives were lost, but not in the magnitude of the Biafra war that lasted 3 years. And the casualty was mostly in the Southwest. But Southwest didn't go to war. The Yoruba didn't go to war, but they also went to war. And that war was won on majority of the people that fought on the pages of newspaper and the media in general. And there was so much pressure on the military that Yoruba will not have anything other than a Yoruba man taking that rightful position that was denied Chief M.K. Abiola. And because of the pressure, both internally and externally, through the formation of NADECO, and funny enough, people forget this history. Kanu, Nnamdi Kanu, was part of NADECO and is from the Southeast extraction.
I remember Nnamdi Kanu.
In fact, I cannot readily remember some of the names now. There were Igbos on the side of NADECO fighting for the right of the Yoruba people, having been denied that presidency by arresting, detaining the winner, the presumed winner, which has become the winner now, because government has said he actually won the election. And Babangida came with his book to say he actually won the election. So that label of presumed has been removed. So it's now
the actual winner of the 1993 elections.
You understand? And one of the things the Yoruba nation extracted from the Federal Republic of Nigeria was that nobody was going to contest that election except Yoruba. And that was why Falai contested against Obasanjo.
Yeah, Olufalaye on this part and Olusegun Obasanjo on the other side.
It's another story if the so-called powerful feudals installed Obasanjo. But the point is, they met the Southwest in a way that agitation came down, because it is still, and to even make it clearer, Obasanjo is from Owu in Egba in Ogun State. Abiola was also from Owu in Egba.
That did not make the people of whether Owu or Egba or Ogun to put out their might for Obasanjo.
They didn't vote for him.
Exactly, because there are also claims of affiliations and connections with other parts of the country, other regions in the country, which will be another story for another day. Exactly.
As a matter of fact, that line of thought, I don't believe it, because at a point he said he's from Igbo extraction,
It's just more about affiliations, not exactly who gave birth to who and exactly.
So I don't want to go into that. But the important thing is there are lessons to be learned in agitation. For me, a Biafra is still possible, but those working on it needs to go back to the drawing board.
And re-strategize.
Okay,
Mr. Fanimo, thank you so much for your insight on that particular topic. Very sensitive one, I must say, but the truth is, Nigeria is ours. Nigerians, every one of us, whether you are from the north, east, west, or south, should have equal benefits of this nation that we.
So, my people, you guys heard what those people said about Nnamdi Kanu's case, especially the fact that they were saying that if they keep keeping him so long in detention, then it becomes a political case. So, guys, I want us to actually take a look at what P2B has been saying. That's Anambra State Governor, the former Anambra State Governor P2B, which is the Labour Party candidate. All he said in Arise News Television, as well as the way he was saying that if he becomes the president of Nigeria, that he is capable to handle all things as a leader, because this is his second time he was contested for Anambra State governorship election and he won. So he has ruled Anambra State for 2 consecutive terms. And now he went on further saying that the Biafra, that he's not against Nnamdi Kanu, that he's not against the Biafra agitator. To be honest, many people have been wanting and expecting him to talk for so long. So finally, he said something about the Biafra thing. And many people were so surprised that P2B has definitely come out to say something about Nnamdi Kanu. So this is what he actually said on our Rise News that got many people shocked. So he went as far as telling us that ever since he was Anambra State governor and everything he did for Anambra State, that they have not actually done anything for him. Neither did they even give him a cup of water or a sachet water or even a bottle water and say thank you, governor, for all you've done. He said nobody appreciated him at all. So guys, I want you guys to just listen to what P2B said here, and I'll be right back.
I criticize every single act that is wrong, whether it's in, go and follow it, whether it's in the east, west, south.
They say you're not hard enough on Ipob. That's what they say.
I'm hard on everybody. I remember what I said during the campaign until today. Any agitator I will discuss with. There's nothing wrong in agitation. Whether it's Yoruba movement, whether it's Moral movement, any movement, I'll sit down and discuss with. It is important because you dialogue people. Even in my house, people agitate. Why don't you dialogue with them? I have children who say, "Oh, I don't want to do this, daddy." And I say, "Okay, let's give me your time. Let's talk." Why are we fearing talking with people? Let's sit down and talk. And then we have exhausted the reason. And if you don't, and that's it. So it's a question of, so like I told you, we've been radical in our approach. And we thought that bad behavior, rascality, makes you powerful. No, it actually kills the system. Good behavior has become weakness. Good character become weakness. Humility has become, everything that is good in Nigeria is classified as wrong. If I go into a place whipping people, shouting and beating people, I'm a strong person.
So the current vice president once said about another candidate that was going that, he's too nice, that he's not nice people that are needed in leadership. And that's the same thing a lot of people are also saying.
It's unfortunate.
About you. And I also want to know your take on this state of emergency thing, Governor Fubara, and the fact that a lot of people are saying there's been state capture, democracy is waning, and the likes, and the courts and other some issues.
Let me tell you, Rufai, as far as I'm concerned, I maintain it. There's no democracy today in Nigeria.
So what are we practicing? So why are you running the 2027 elections if there's no democracy?
We will continue to be agitating for true democracy. Rufai, being an election in Edo, does this show any sign of being a democratic country? Capital, no. Rufai, the coffin was nailed by what happened in River State. You cannot, on any circumstances, solve a problem in a democratic setting by going against the rules. You can't even solve any problem by going against the rules. There's a process.
President Zuma went against the rules in River States?
Of course, there's a process there's a process. You've just, what did you do? You actually say it's undemocratic. When you go and bring somebody that is not elected, that didn't follow there was a process.
But a lot of people too will remind you too, you didn't hold local government election when you were in Anambra State. It's easy to point at Tinubu now, but what about you?
I'm not pointing at them. I'm just telling you, I can tell you, go and check the court process in Anambra State. I was in court for years against conducting an election because people thought if I conducted it, I would do what everybody's doing. So it took me almost 7 years before we could conduct. Rufai, I governed one of the virtually the most difficult states at the time he had crisis. If there's nothing I did in Anambra State that people are proud of today, I brought stability and order in Anambra State. Before me, nobody who was governor in Anambra State had what you can call a peaceful reign. It was quarrel for 4 years. Ngige was quarrel until he left after 3 years. It was under me that things started changing. Because of the same way I've managed things, started changing, and I started becoming something. I even changed it from being home for all to light of the nation. I started doing things in an organized manner. Rufai, I was the first person in old and new Anambra State to be governor twice. So I started organizing things properly. So it is easy to sit there and say, oh, he did this. But the reality of it is, Rufai, come, let's visit the state. I live there. That's where I live. And when I'm there, I'm at home. It's the only place I am. There's nobody who will tell you today, this bit of visa house in Abuja, this bit of visa house in Lagos, this bit of visa house. I live in Anambra State. In Lagos, I live in a rented apartment. In Abuja, most times I stay in the hotel. So, but I have a home in Onitsha, where I go back and I'm always there. So you can come, walk the street, no security, and I invite you.
Okay, Mr. Butabi, once there's certain, we'll still keep bringing most of these criticisms and asking you questions about the state of the nation.
So my people, you guys listen to what Peter Obi said. I actually showed you guys, this is what Peter Obi said on our Rise TV news about himself, and this is presidential thing that he's coming for, as well as he told us what he has done in Anambra State that people did not appreciate. Like, he went on further telling us that these people never gave him water to say, okay, thank you, this is what you've done for us. They never appreciated him at all. Now, he said he has the capability of being a leader. He has the capability of being the president of Nigeria. Though I've also heard this news. Ujo Zokalu came out on Arise TV. I think it was Channel TV. He came out and was telling the whole world that any coalition against Tinubu is not going to work. Like, many people were surprised, with that man. People went as far as saying that Ojo Zakalu is already a betrayer. We already know this man far back. He's a betrayer of Ndi Igbos. He said that the coalition against Tinubu is not going to work. So he's trying to tell us that come 2027, that Tinubu is still going to be the president of Nigeria. That is what he said. And we saw some pictures of him and the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, where they were shaking hands and, saying, are they trying to tell us that so even his own brother cannot still be the president of Nigeria? He's still supporting Tinubu to come 2027 again. Anyway, guys, that's all we have for today. Let me know your thoughts below. And also, if you know you're new to this channel, please don't forget to click the subscribe button, like and share, and turn on the notification button to be getting all the latest news in this channel. So guys, thanks for watching, and see you guys again in my next live section.